Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another book review on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and today we are taking a look at The Ross Rifle Story by Chadwick, Phillips, and Dupuis. It's a collaborative effort between three separate authors, and unfortunately, it looks like it. It shows. This is generally known as the Bible of Ross rifle collecting, and for good reason. This is really the single main source, reference source out there on the Ross rifle. So if you're not familiar with them, the Ross was a straight pull rifle system designed by Sir Charles Ross in Canada right around the turn of the century, and it was actually, the book, of course, describes the whole story, but there were problems after the Boer War with the Canadian military getting more Lee Enfields from the British, and faced with difficulties and expenses, they turned to Sir Charles Ross, who offered to build a rifle factory and use Canadian labor and Canadian raw materials and Canadian industry to make a Canadian rifle. That sounded like a great idea, and so starting right around 1900, this project got underway, and ultimately, when Canadian troops departed for World War I in 1914 and 1915, they took Ross rifles with them. Now, there's a bit of a sad story to the demise of the Ross. It was formally pulled from combat in 1916 due to problems both real and political. But that's what this book covers, as well as all the technical development through the three major patterns of Ross and the scads of small-scale versions. So there's a Mark I. There are then 5 different versions of the Mark II Ross, and then there's the Mark III, and on top of that, there are also commercial, sporting, hunting versions of these rifles as well. So this is the Bible of Ross collecting. All the information's in there. However, it's very poorly organized. This book was in dire need of an editor, and it didn't get one. I believe what happened was that one of the contributing authors passed away before the book was completed. The guy the contributor whose job it was to compile the whole thing kind of gave up and took the 2 existing manuscripts that they had from 2 of the authors, squished them together into one book, and just printed it. And so that's the reason why there is a table of contents at the beginning, and then there's a second table of contents on page 85, because there's a second whole book that starts on page 85. It's basically, the first chunk is the story of Ross and the military contracts and kind of the whole backstory to the rifle and its development. And then the second book is all the technical development. So the second book talks about the specific details of the cartridges and the change in rear sights, because holy cow, they went through like 8 different rear sights on these rifles. And all of the little technical minutia, including a large section of cool sort of general reference pages, you could call them, like a page that has a profile picture of a rifle and some specifications on it. And there are a whole bunch of these in order that cover like all the major variations of the gun. Ian Skinnerton does a similar sort of thing in his book on the Lee Enfield. Anyway, there's a bunch of that in here, but it's like kind of squished in the middle in between some other sections. It really needed an editor. Even though the information's in there, it's hard information to access. This is, in fact, one of the worst written firearms reference books that's out there, to be completely honest about it. However, it's also still the Bible of the Ross rifle, because it is the only reference material out there on the Ross. There are a couple other very small publications, but nothing that comes anywhere close to the comprehensiveness of this. So the problem is this was printed in 1984 and has been sold out for literally decades. If you go look on Amazon or pretty much any of the various third-party booksellers, you'll find it for $300 and up. In fact, $300 is usually a pretty good price. However, I happened to come into the knowledge that this was actually reprinted in 2002. This is, in fact, one of the 2002 reprints. The book is exactly the same, except for fixing a problem in the original edition where a couple of the pages were printed twice. So like, you're flipping the page, it says 154, 155, 156, 155, 156, 157, 158. Like, there's some duplicates, and I think there's actually one page that got left out of the original edition. So the 2002 reprint fixed that, but is otherwise unchanged. And the guy who financed that reprint, as of the time of this filming, still has about 3 dozen copies in his basement that he hasn't really bothered marketing at all, but that are for sale for $100. So I will include in the description text below the email address where you can contact him to order a copy. He does take PayPal, but there's no automated thing. It's just if you want a copy, email him, ask for one. He'll give you his PayPal address, pay him the money, you get your book in the mail from Canada, by the way. So in the US, I don't know what shipping time is, but it may be a little bit. Once those are sold out, then this legitimately goes back into the completely unavailable realm. So I expect that these will sell out fairly quickly because this is a book. I know I was thrilled when I discovered that he had these, and I immediately bought one because I've been trying to deal with borrowing one to do some videos on Ross rifles. So once they are sold out, once he tells me that they're all gone, I will go ahead and remove his email address so that he doesn't continue to get spammed by people. So if you want a copy of this, I know I always say this, but in this case in particular, act quickly, order a copy because there really is a very small quantity available. Hopefully this will get reprinted, it doesn't need to get reprinted. It needs to get completely rewritten and rephotographed. I didn't even get to the point. Like, the photographs are pretty marginal. They're all black and white. They're kind of crap. Everything about the production value of this book is poor, but the information is in there if you can dig it out. And so if you're interested in the Ross, you got to have a copy of this book. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.